Welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Brandon, and today we're going over the Quintessential Quintuplets set. With set 2 being released, we now have new forms and new decks to be able to look at. We want to go over specifically this, what we call 12 standby list. Now, you can't run more than the normal 8 climaxes in a deck. However, something really special with this set itself, the level 3 combos with the standby climax to when on attack during attack phase, that the level 3 Nino allows us to be able to trigger standby as well during that trigger step. So it effectively acts like an additional 4 standby triggers only on the offensive turn. So defensively, you still only have 8 climaxes, but offensively, it acts as though you have 12 when you have that climax in play. So we refer to it as the 12 standby list because you're effectively putting out 12 standby during the offensive phase, which just helps you build bigger boards. And here is the overview of the list itself. This list is probably going to be very similar to some of the other lists you're going to see. We want to kind of break this down real quick to kind of present this to you as we get into this fall season. First up, we have As an Actress Ichika. On play, you can look at the top card, keep it on top, or put it in waiting room, and pay 1 clock self to be able to search your deck for a level 1 or lower, add it to hand. This is a really effective tool to help get you into your next deck. It's also an opportunity to help search out some of your tech pieces to be able to get the cards that you want into your hand ready to go. Next up, we have Daily Routine Nino. Really useful card in this deck. You can ditch a card with Nino in name to draw one. You can also ditch a card, reveal the top card of the deck, and then you can salvage based off of the level revealed. So you're always able to salvage 0, but you could salvage just about anything else, depending on what level is revealed. This is a very effective profile in helping to get cards back into hand that you were looking for. With standby, we run a little bit higher counts of higher level cards, so we're able to potentially hit on higher level cards more often. But notably, it's just a straight costless hand filter from waiting room. There's not an additional stock cost to it. And you can potentially draw into climaxes too. So next up, we have Frank Word's Nino on play. You can shuffle 2 characters back from waiting room back into your deck. If you do, then you give one of your characters +1 soul. Notably, this card currently has text saying otherwise, that should be what it should be errata 2. The errata has not happened yet, so keep that in mind that should be something incoming. It also has the ability, when a climax is placed, you can return this card back to hand and give something 1,000 power, and the ability to filter its own trigger. So being able to give this to a character, then filter out a trigger so you can put maybe a character into waiting room so that way you can stand by it out. A very useful tool to help not only get cards into waiting room, but make sure your stock is clean. It also helps you move through the deck just 1 more, so you could potentially trigger standby more often. Next up, we have the Quintessential Quintuplets Itsuki. This is a level 0 bomb that reverses its opponent's character. You also have the Cheery effect, so when it goes to waiting room, you can ditch a card, look at the top 4, choose a level 1 or higher, and add it to hand. This is a good way to be able to get events into hand, so the one event that we do run can be grabbed off of this. This is also another mill piece to help build a mill through your deck a little bit more, help get cards in waiting room to standby back out. So a pretty useful card through this deck. We also then have the Quintessential Quintuplets Nino. This is a Brainstormer that's salvaged from waiting room. It also has the ability, when you reverse an opponent, you can grant 500 power to another Quintuplets character. So you can kind of help slowly build up power on a field. With your power effects and bonuses, you should be bigger, especially on attack, but just an added little 500 that can help in some decent matchups. We also have the Studying in Advance Itsuki. You can rest this card to give another character 500 power, and the ability to, when they reverse your opponent's character, you can send it into clock. This is particularly good in the mirror. This is also particularly good against things that have Encore or on death effects. So that way you can help remove those things. You can help make sure that you are able to clear board and not let your opponent benefit off of it. A very useful card in specific matchups. It also has the ability to pay 2, rest this card to return a character back to your hand. You're probably not going to be using it for that effect. You're probably using it for the first effect. We also then have Operation Doppelganger Nino. This card can technically count as Yotsuba. Not that that's relevant for this deck. On play, you look at the top card, leave it on top or put it in waiting room again. You also have the ability to pay 1 climax swap. I have this specifically in here to be able to help get you the climax that you want for specifically the end game. The end game is where it's most important to be able to have the climax that you want if you're trying to close out the game. But that's a level 0 lineup, a lot of utility tools, a lot of pieces to help either move through the deck, help get a specific card that you're looking for, help push you into your next deck state, get the pieces you're looking for, either climaxes or cards, or having the opportunity to tools to deal with your opponent's cards. And all of them essential for helping the deck continue to move forward as you get into that heavier standby game. Going into level 1, we run a split of our 1/1s. We have the 1/1 Parting Words Nino, gains additional 2,000 power if you have 2 or more, and Encore. The Encore is separate from the 2 or more condition, so you can Encore this regardless. The 2,000 power puts us up to 7,500, your typical standby target. We also run the 1/1 Why So Guarded Nino. This one cannot be reversed by cost of 0 characters. It also gains 2,000 power if you have 2 or more, so it sits at 6/5. This is particularly good against things like Danmachi, where they can't reverse it at level 1. So it helps you continue to keep board. This also helps deny on-reverse effects, even if they can get up to the power thresholds. So I run this as a split of 3/3. I recognize that's a lot of 1/1s in a deck. However, being able to have the right piece for when you need it is very important. So having these in waiting room and being able to choose which one you want can decide matchups. But that's it for level 1. Moving on to level 2, we have our 2/2 standby target. This is actually really interesting because it has the combo with the climax. First, the ability that it has itself is during your turn, if all of your characters have the quintuplets trait, it gains 2 abilities. On your turn, plus 5,000 power, pushing this up to 12,000 power on attack. It also comes with Encore. You're able to ditch a character to bring this card back to field rested. The climax combo itself, during the climax phase, when this card is placed on stage by the climax, and you have 2 or more other, you can discard the climax into waiting room to stand it, and it gains additional 1,000 power cross turn. So when you play down the climax that this pairs with, bring it onto field, stand it, give it an additional 1,000 power, so attacking 13 on attack, and sitting at 8,000 defensively, and you get to swing with it immediately, so you can bring this on alongside your 1/1s, and all of a sudden now your board is extensive. You have a board clearing 2/2 immediately, which is a bit different than on some of the other standby decks where they have to wait a turn before bringing this forward or bringing this into attack. You can attack with it immediately, so you can use this board clearing ability right away to attempt to dominate board. Very effective and very useful for taking command of the board quickly. We also have the important charm here. This is the 2/3 event. That is also a counter. When you use this, you choose one of your opponent's character. That character gets -3 soul until the end of that turn. So you can use this to negate damage coming your way. Notably, it doesn't give power, but being able to deny damage is very effective, especially towards the end of the game where you can essentially stop swings that are lethal. This also drastically affects things like restanders, where that soul is stuck on that character. Very idealized card to be able to help prevent damage coming your way. I also run this 2/1 Miku that is a memory kick counter, so you can give something 3,000 power and the ability to send it away to memory. Especially with a lot of things that have, at the end of attack effects, this ability to send things to memory, helping to negate some of those, is very useful, as well as getting rid of things with Encore as well. So like being able to use this backup effectively and to be able to threaten things on your opponent's side makes a big difference. Because especially if you can remove things like, say, somebody's Benimaru or 2/2 Gulain or Paul, you're able to remove things that have full field power, which immediately drop the rest of them down as well. So useful card, specifically defensively, to be able to, again, control the board. As we go into level 3, we have this 3/2 Ichika. This Ichika is the early play, 2 or less climaxes in waiting room. It is a stock healer, so you're able to kind of heal and replenish stock on the same go as part of that stay alive idea. As also part of the top end, we have this 3/2 Ichika. This is a frontal assist 2k power to anything. So this is one of the things we would like to stand by in at 2, help keep your 2/2s even bigger. On play from hand, you can heal. And when you bring a character in through standby, you can choose a character and give it an additional soul. So every time you play a standby trigger, or anytime you trigger a standby trigger, you can continue to grant things more soul. This is really useful for being able to side attack things. This is useful for being able to push damage if you know you need to. This is a very useful tool all around. We have then taking the love off Nino. This is the 3/2 that can add a standby trigger when the climax is in play. It also, during your turn, gets additional 4,000 power if you have 2 or more. So you're looking at 12-5 on attack, on play heal, and the climax combo that additionally pairs with, at the end of this card's attack, pay 1, pitch 1, if you have 2 or more other, to burn for 3. So pay 1, pitch 1, burn 3, 12-5 on attack, heal, and can standby things in. This card is loaded for what this deck is trying to do. This deck is kind of centralized around this card. I also run the 3-2 Nino here, the Someone Who Will Fall For You Nino, because it also gives your center stage 1,500 power. It also has the ability of, when you play CX, you can look at the top 2 and rearrange, and then additionally give a character the ability to, on attack, filter. So not only can you rearrange to make sure you're not triggering your standby climax first, so you could have a spot to then trigger the standby over, you can additionally filter out a card. So if there's a card in there that you want in waiting room before you get there, you can rearrange it, filter it out, trigger the standby. So very useful piece with this deck to be able to continually pump up power and to continually have that power threshold there. It's its base 10, so you're looking at 11-5 when this card's in the front row without any additional bonuses, both offensively and defensively, and all of the filtering tools on attack. So it makes it really useful with that process. Then we also have this Fantasizing Ichika. This is a really interesting card. This has pay 2, rest self, burn your opponent for 1, and a change effect to be able to bounce this back to hand to choose one of your characters and put it on your stage at the beginning of climax phase. So what I think is really interesting here, because there's not a level restriction on this, is bringing this in at 2 to, say, bring in the previous card at the beginning of climax phase before you play down the climax, switching into that one from the front row after paying 2, burn 1, to all of a sudden your field's even more boosted. Say level 2, you stand by this Ichika to the back row. Say you already have your power pump there, you slam it down, stand by this to the back row. You could still be at level 2, pay 2, burn, because you haven't paid the cost for this character yet. Bounce it back to hand to play down power pump on field from hand at level 2, and then play the standby trigger to standby something else additionally out behind it. I think the biggest importance with this card is the pay 2, rest self, burn 1 during main phase, so that way you can kind of get around different abilities, counters, and to be able to just get that damage through, and also help with some of your ratio numbers for when you actually swing on that end turn. You pay 2, burn 1, and all of a sudden your combo that swings with 3, and all of a sudden your combo that has the burn 3s, you only need to stick to the burn 3s, none of the attacks, to be able to win the game. So you could potentially play this down, burn 1. You know your opponent has counters, you could literally side burn 3, and win the game. So I think it's really interesting. With that in mind, looking at this deck overall as a whole, this is your typical 8 standby package with just a couple of extra standby triggers on attack. Trying to bring those things in early, trying to bring the power to win board and save resources throughout the game. Your zeros help you filter your cards, help you get the cards you want into hand, so that way when you're in the end game, you have the tools and resources to not only prevent your opponent from closing the game, but to turn around and do it yourself. Very strong, really interesting deck itself. We're going to be looking at this deck on Thursday as we play a game with it to kind of highlight some of the different tools with this deck, some of the different power ratios with this deck, and as well as looking at this deck going forward into the fall season. So if you stick around Thursday, we're going to look at that. Next week, we have a clock talk. We're going to be talking about Rumble. We're going to be looking at some of the different things that we found from Rumble, as well as having a special guest join us for that. So love to see you there. And then the following Thursday, we're going to have 5 cards, 5 minutes. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.